Okay, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Ron Stevens. This is Rock the Boat right here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I'm your host for the next 2 hours, and we'll see what we can find out today. And if you're over at Revolution Radio and you got something you want to talk about, just go to Studio B, get the phone number, and call in. Not sure if it's going to hook up right or not, but give it a shot. Anyways, what are we going to talk about today? Today, let me see here. We have somewhere I saw that this is a story out of Calgary that says that this is an opinion piece, and it's called Finding Calgary's Soul, a meditation for Black History Month. Now, we have a lot of different history months in this country, apparently. We have the Muslim month, there's Islam month, Islamic month, and now we have here in Calgary, we have Black History Month. And I don't know if that's just in Calgary or it's Black History Month everywhere or what's cooking exactly, but I'm looking for, White History Month maybe. And I'm not being facetious or anything. It's just, I'm kind of feeling left out. I'm a white male of European background, and I'm kind of feeling left. Well, actually, I'm starting to become a little bit offended. And I don't know, maybe I have to call somebody and tell them I'm offended. Because offended seems to be the key game going on. Everybody's offended by one thing or another. So it's, we have our Lieutenant Governor puking off, and she's from the UN, puking off that, Islam and the Muslims were a huge part in the development of Canada. Now, I never even saw a Muslim till a while back, not very long ago. In fact, when I grew up in the Ottawa Valley, my town, Renfrew, Ontario, it wasn't until I was about, around 12 that I ever even seen anybody that was black. And that's how white European my Ottawa Valley was. I don't recall ever having a kid on the bus that was not of white European descent. We used to go to Ottawa every now and again to go to the museums. We were only 7 miles away from Ottawa. And we go to the museums and the Parliament buildings and the Chateau Laurier and all these kind of places. And I don't recall seeing any Muslims. I don't recall seeing any East Indians. I don't recall seeing any black people. All I saw was what I thought was us, was white Europeans. And it wasn't until I was about 12 that a family moved into our neighborhood. They were blacker than the ace of spades, man. They were from South Africa, and they'd moved to England, and he was a teacher. They taught there for a while, and then they took the advantage to come over here. Nice people. And so they had a son that was about my age. I think we were the same, about 12, somewhere in there. And and had that really, wiry, curly black hair, and blacker than the ace of spades. Nice kid, and we became friends. And but I was kind of amazed, because a lot of people would yell at him, and it was tough on him. I just seen a kid. I wasn't into all this political nonsense. So, I had to, he wasn't looking for any trouble, but he was getting lots of it. And so, I ended up defending him against some of my own friends. I'm not a racist. I get called that all the time. I get called I'm a racist and a bigot and this and that and all this other nonsense. This was would have been 67, 68, somewhere in there. This is when they started really working to get this multiculturalism nonsense going on. So the family that came over here, they didn't know, they were just offered a job over here. And he was a well-respected teacher, the father, and took the opportunity to bring his family over here. And that's how it all starts, right? That's how it starts. Now, I chew out the Jews a lot. I chew out the Muslims a lot. I chew out the black people a lot. I chew out the East Indians a lot. But most of those people who came here did not come here for any nefarious reason. Now that's moved along quite a bit. The nefarious purposes are becoming more obvious now. But most of those people that came to the West were just looking for something better. Most of those people that were shipped into this country had no idea of what was going on in the background. They didn't come here to destroy our nation. But the idea of multiculturalism was to get enough people in here that were not white European descent. Okay, and that's when the real takedown starts. So now we have all of these people who are running for parliament, running for your local councils and all this kind of stuff. And again, the majority of the people aren't here to cause anybody any harm, but we're being made to bow down to every freaking minority there is. And there's lots of minorities now. We, the majority, we who built this nation, have to take a back seat now. We have to be apologetic all the time now. We have to lay down while they run over us. And it's not the individual that's running over us, it's the overarching plan that's running over us. And every single governmental body in this country is guilty of trying to take this nation down from the inside. And that has to stop. So this is kind of, they got a picture of this really ripped young guy with a headscarf on, and it says Soul in the City. And Calgary, the road ahead, it says. Editor's note. Calgary is often seen as a city of economic bluster and workaholics, but as Lynn Otegogoy writes, if you look, you can find its soul. Her poetic meditation is in honor of Black History Month. Now, this girl looks like somebody who come from, inner city Detroit, and I'm not being negative about that. It's just what she looks like. The writer of this thing, we'll just call her Lynn, because there's no way that I can pronounce her right name, her last name. She's a singer-songwriter, and Calgary-based. She co-created a community focused on organizations called the Soul in the City. So this is what she writes. There was a time when I couldn't see you. I didn't know you were there. I was worried that I would never find you, and worse, you would never find me. I used to believe that you could only be found in places like Toronto, New York, Vancouver, Los Angeles, not Calgary. But with time, I could feel your pulse beneath my feet. You became a steady thought, tucked in the back of my mind, only to be seen in my dreams. As the years came and went, I grew and the city grew. Together we experienced a change of pace and a change of thought. We experienced with different looks and made many new friends from all walks of life that each left an imprint on us so profound that we will never be the same. With each year and each encounter, we expanded. We became bolder and more vibrant, more open and more unique. With each new encounter and deeper experience, I could feel you making your way to the surface. Today, your presence is undeniable. I see you everywhere and in everyone. Your voice has become so strong, I've had no choice but to sing your song and join in your dance. I'm excited by you. I'm enthralled with you and the opportunity you have brought to me in the city of Calgary. You are the flavor that gives Calgary its kick. You are the steady beat that has become the heart of this city. You have inspired us to come together and share our stories, our talents, and our gifts, regardless of our color, race, religion, or orientation. It is as though we can come together and experience our oneness and discover our flawed perfection. You see, the city means a lot to me. We've grown up together. She was there when I took my first breath and likely when I take my last. So trust me when I say that she has never been as beautiful, vibrant, and exciting as she is right now. And I think it's because she found you, her soul. We have a soul in this city. So the road ahead in CBC's Calgary special focus on our city as it passes through the crucible of the downturn, the challenges we face, and the possible solutions. We explore what kind of Calgary we want to create. Have an idea, email it. Now, this is always a problem here. The Calgary we want to create. Well, who is the we? That's always the question. Who is the we? And George Hunt was very good at that. George Hunt is gone now, Boulder, Colorado. And we interviewed him a couple of times, talked to him quite a few times off air. He caught wind of what was going on back in '87, busted his ass trying to, as he said, create some sparks so that we could create a flame to save our nations. And so, back when he did some videos, you can look up George Hunt on the internet or on YouTube, and he really puts a hammer on the environmental movement. Even though we had an environmental company, the environmental movement itself is as dirty as black gold, because the same people run it. But, it said, in our hands, there's a logo of two hands holding the earth in our hands. And as George said, in whose hands? Well, in their hands. And this we is the same group of people. The Calgary we wish to build, we want to create. Well, the average Calgarian is not involved in this. When I would like to go back to Calgary. Calgary is one town I'd like to go back to. I've been to Calgary since, mid-70s. And spent a while in Alberta, working in different places and living in Edmonton and Calgary. And the Edmonton and Calgary, the Alberta that I knew was really no different than the Ottawa Valley I grew up in. It was, 99 plus percent white European. And I always felt bad for the native people when I lived in Alberta because they weren't getting a fair shake. No how, no way were these people getting a fair shake. And they're still not getting a fair shake. But we're being moved into the white European class is being moved into the same position as the native people. Whether you want to believe that or not, it's true. Our heritage is being disappeared. Our history is being disappeared. And they are creating a new country. And we're not really going to be part of that. I used to watch some of these, what the hell was that guy's name? I had it and I lost it. He was East Indian, I think. What was that guy's name, Artie, that I used to like all the time? A long time ago when he first started doing comedy. Remember the guy that did the skit about his white friend? Huh? I can't remember it right now. But anyways, I watched, he did an HBO or something. And he was standing there and he's telling the people in the audience how their job was to turn us all beige. And that's when I first realized that this isn't about comedy. This is about pushing a message. And they push the message through comedy. They push it through sports. They push it through the churches. They push it through politics. This message is being pounded from every direction, but in such a fashion, most people don't understand what the hell is being said. Russell Peters, that was the guy's name. And even on CBC, this hour has 22 minutes. That little East Indian guy there, he did a kind of a rap song I seen on YouTube about basically how the white people ain't going to be, because we're all going to be brown or whatever color. So the Calgary we want to create, the country we want to create, is not us. We are not them. Okay, the we they're speaking about is not you and I. The we they're talking about are the internationalists, the globalists, the evil ones, if you will, who are sitting and plotting the destruction of our and every other nation on the planet, because they have to destroy the nations in order to get their world government. And one of the main goals of the UN and its partners is the end of nation states, of which our so-called leader says we're the first post-national state. So this is the kind of nonsense that's going on. Now, I don't have a problem with Lynn, and I don't have a problem really with anybody. But when you're calling yourself now the pulse of the city, and you couldn't see them, and now that you see, and all of this kind of stuff, that you're rising, and so you got a voice now, you think, which accordingly will be Black Lives Matter, I guess, which is all concocted out of the UN. So this is not about integration in any way, shape, or form. Any of what's going on, this multiculturalism, is about the destruction of the society that was there prior, which is us. And somewhere down the road, we got to come to terms with that, and we're going to have to deal with it. Now, there's another story in here about Patrick Brown, who was the leader of the Conservative Party of Ontario, and then there was some stories about maybe he was made some inappropriate sexual moves towards a couple of girls or something way back whenever. And with all of this offending and inclusiveness and well, you can't even breathe maybe anymore without getting in trouble, got turfed from the party. And now he's come back to the party. I can't do that, Christopher. I'm going to have to drag you in. I can't do this on Revolution Radio, or I'll lose it. So I'll bring you in a minute. Anyway, so Patrick Brown was tossed from the party, and then as the leader, so he came back in as a candidate. Now they could have stopped him, but they didn't. But what this is doing is really shining a light. I saw a poll yesterday about if people think all this nonsense of all these sexual allegations, not just for Patrick Brown, but politicians all over the place, and everything is such a mess right now in the political realm that people are not too happy. They don't really trust the politicians anymore. Well, about bloody time. So anyways, Patrick Brown was booted out, come back in, and now he's a candidate for the leadership again. Now, he's office opening. Please join Patrick Brown, MPP for Simcoe North, Ontario PC leadership candidate, and Mohammed Latif, Ontario PC Windsor Tecumseh candidate. Now, here's where I have a problem. Okay, and I can't say this enough to people. I've been saying it for bloody long time. So here we have this white guy called Patrick Brown who got tossed out because of sexual innuendos, and he's going to be speaking, I guess, in Windsor or whatever. And the candidate in Windsor is Mohammed. Now, herein lies the problem, people, and you better get it through your thick skulls, and you better get it through your thick skulls ASAP. We are the problem, okay? The white population, the European population of this country is the problem. You've been dumbed down so bad, you become so subservient to the so-called government. You've been so convinced the government is there to give you things and to look after you. You don't know anything anymore. Unlike our forefathers, who were considerably sharper than the people are today. So here you have the conservative leader, or no, not the conservative leader. He's running for leadership again. He was the leader. And he's going down to speak in Windsor, and he's hooking up with the candidate down there who just happens to be Mohammed, which, by the way, is not a white European name. And this is what's happening, okay? The story I just did about the black soul of Calgary, or not just the black soul, it was the blacks that brought the soul to Calgary. Apparently Calgary didn't have any soul prior to. And in the political realm, we're having more and more candidates running who either have a different religious background or have a different political background. But those who are in power write the rules. And the more Mohammeds that run, the more power they're going to get. I mean, we do have in Calgary where the blacks have brought the soul, and the Ismaili run the city, because the mayor of Calgary is an Ismaili Muslim, the same breed of Muslim as the Aga Khan, the same breed of Muslim as the Attorney General of Ontario. You know, we've got the Lieutenant Governor of Ontario, who is a vicious hag, looks like a portly little old matriarchal woman, but she is in a video saying she was tired when she was with UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program that was started by the notorious Maurice Strong, but that she's sick and tired of this incrementalism. Let's just get it done. So they've picked up the pace considerably here now because they're trying to get it done. So we have more and more people that are not grounded to this country like our forefathers and those who, the offspring of our forefathers. And you try to get somebody to run in this province or this country or at the municipal level is worse than pulling freaking teeth. And we have to get over that. We got to step up to the plate. When they're removing the statutes, when the mayor of Edmonton is offended by the word Eskimo, like in the Edmonton Eskimos, and they want, this is going on all over the place, not just in Alberta, where the name of what they consider to be some sort of a indigenous name is offensive. You could look at it the other way. You know, you got the Chicago Blackhawks. You know, you have native names all over this, all through the sports sphere. Instead of looking at that as being offensive, why don't you look at it as being, you know, a thumbs up? But the problem is, these guys get in for 4 years at a crack, and they come in there and they're going to say, well, we don't want you to use that name anymore because we feel it's offensive, or somebody felt it was offensive, even though the name's been the name since the Eskimos began a long, long time ago. And I want to do this to you, even though you've been here a lot longer than me, but I'm in power right now, so we want to change this kind of stuff. Has to stop. It has got to stop. But we're not stopping it. We just keep turning our head the other way. And you're losing your nation. And it ain't the politicians' fault. And it ain't the influx of newcomers' fault. It's your fault. You were here first. You built the frickin' place. You built the place. I know you're just standing on the sidelines while everything that you built is being sold off, taken away from you, reconstructed, reconstrued. And You ain't even batting an eye about it. And I don't understand that at all. That's not the people I came from. That's not what I was spawned from. My 90-year-old uncle's got more backbone, more spirit, and a stronger mind than probably 99% of the people wandering around this damn country. But he's old school. He knows right from wrong. And he don't bow down. And if it's wrong, he ain't bowing down to it. You know, and when I went to get my candidacy papers signed, the signatures I needed to run in this election coming up, I went into that real estate office, and I don't recall the lady's name. Not that I don't really pay that much attention to names generally, unless I'm seeing people all the time. But you know, I went in there and she signed the paperwork. The realtor, the owner of the business, he didn't want nothing to do with it. You know, he slinked out of the office the first time, and then we were talking after signing the papers, and he came back in, and he didn't want nothing to do with it, right? But what she said to me kind of shocked me. It did shock me. You know, because she looked at me and she said, you know, you're the only guy in this town that will say what needs to be said. And I asked her, I said, well, why is that? Why am I the only guy in this town that will say that what needs to be said? She said, well, the others are afraid. That's pathetic. That is really, truly pathetic. You know, that's not where my forefathers came from. But we just keep backing down, backing down, backing down, backing down. My uncle said in Bush, when the ministry boys came up, he said, hey, my Bush, get off, don't come back and own a gun. Pretty simple statements. Got the ministry boys all freaked out and asked him if he was threatening them. And he said, no threat intended. Just simple statements. Now, would my uncle shoot them? Not bloody likely. He's a very peaceful man. But he's a man. I don't know, so he gets point across. And those ministry guys have never been back to his bush again. Because they know he will stand his ground. And he doesn't need a gun to do it. He just needs a strong spirit, mind, and spine. And nothing fears government more than a strong spirit, mind, and spine. But they know they've weakened the mass majority of those spirits, minds, and spines, so they can be manipulated any way they wish, and they will always bow down because they're running scared like little children. So we got to man up. Because we also have this bad habit of blaming others, you know, blaming politicians. Well, then replace that with you. There, problem solved. Now, once you get control, as the multinational movement is trying to do, which is all minorities, so you're bowing down to all the minorities because you're told you can't say anything, and now you're going to be run, your life's going to be run by all the minorities. Geez, not too bright, folks. Now, whether you stand up or not, that ain't my problem, but it is going to be your children's, grandchildren, those not yet born problem. And the only one that's going to be responsible for creating that problem is you. Plain and simple. There is nobody to blame but the one that's staring back at you in the mirror. That's it. Now, if you all come to that conclusion and understand that and learn to say no, all of a sudden, we've got a very powerful force. I don't know where the word no got taken out of the vocabulary of the Canadian people. Probably the school system, where you were taught to bow down to authority. As children, which means you stayed in the child position when you were done school. Because anyone that presents themselves in a position of authority, you get afraid of, you bow down to, you submit, you become subservient, like a whipped dog. Not how men operate. Me and my brother-in-law went for coffee this morning, and we were talking about some of this stuff, and he was talking about that he'd watched Logan's Run, hadn't seen it in a long, long time, and he said, that's a pretty spooky movie. And one of the things he brought up to me in the movie was that, you know, it wasn't so much about them escaping the city and getting out into the countryside, of which they were told didn't exist. And that's exactly what's happening now, is you won't be allowed to go out in the country in the future unless you're assisted or on a tour. The freedom to just go wander around in the bush or the countryside along a river is rapidly disappearing. But what he found most interesting in the movie was that, you know, him and his buddy, whose job was, they were like cops, and their job was to like shoot runners, those that were trying to break out of the city and get out in the countryside and get away from this hierarchy that was running their lives. And he said they should have concentrated more on that part, because I found it rather astounding that these two guys were buddies, and they were out shooting runners. And when somebody tried to escape the city, those who were trying to escape were liquefied basically by these new guns. But he was totally surprised when the two partners, Michael York and the girl, took off out of the city, found a way out to get out of as an enclosed city. And that even when they got outside of the city, his buddy didn't stop and say, whoa, it's real. There is something outside of the walled city or the capsulated city. No, this guy was so brainwashed that his buddy, who was a cop just like him, didn't say, wow, they were right. No, his job was to kill runners. So he went after his buddy. And Bruce found that rather amazing, that would happen, that these people had this friendship. But the state comes above everything else. And it seems to me that's what's going on in this country as well. Everybody bows to the state, even though it's illegitimate. The authority's illegitimate. And we have to change that attitude somehow. Anyways, I'm going to bring you in, Chris. Don't get too ticked off, but I want to talk to you actually when I get you in here. So I want your thoughts on this. This Canada, the Myth, or whatever that movie is they're trying to make. I got some serious problems with this. A video you sent me yesterday. I've watched a couple of videos on this before. He's not saying anything I don't already know. But I can't, I went searching for who this Doug Force guy is. I can't come up with anything. And the guy that was interviewing him with that little beanie hat on kind of makes me a little nervous. And this is looking like another look over here, don't look over there situations. I'm really concerned that people are all getting caught up in this movie that's supposed to go into production soon. This is, again, taking your... it's for lazy people, really, because people don't want to do their own research in that. They just wait for this guy to come up with this movie, and then they'll watch it, and they'll believe every damn thing in it. Now, there's some problems with what I heard him talking about yesterday. And this movie they're coming out with kind of looks to me to be not on the up and up at all. It looks like it's another bait and switch game. It's another truth or movement bullshit thing. So I want people to be very, very wary of this movie, Canada, the Myth, I think it's called. And search out these interviewers that are interviewing this Doug Force guy. And if you get any information on the Doug Force guy, which I haven't been able to come up with yet, please let me know. And because there's something not right here. There is something most definitely not right. And, he's talking about the fact that Canada was never federated, and that the provinces are sovereign. Now, I did some research quite some time ago, and one of the ideas of taking down the countries is to have the countries split themselves up into pieces. Okay, and we have, the Western Separation Party, we have this separation party, that separation party, the separation of Quebec way back when Levesque and Trudeau and these guys all knew what the hell's going on. It looked like the wanting to separate Quebec from Canada fits right into that game of busting up the nations, so they start fighting amongst each other, and they can get picked off. And so, again, that movie that they're going to come out with, the more I look at this, the more crooked it's looking. It's all about guiding people to a place that you don't want to end up at. And a divided nation can't stand. Okay, and Canada, whether it's federated or not federated, or it's under admiralty law or common law or corporate law, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference. Okay, it was our people that built everything in this place that's called Canada. And it's us that are going to have to defend it. Now, we get squabbling amongst each other where this, if Alberta wants to separate and Quebec wants to separate, both are inside of the east and west boundaries with other lands on the outside of them before you get to the oceans. This will totally devastate and destroy the nation, which is the game plan of the globalist, the internationalist, and of nation states. So please look into that and keep your eyes wide open on this upcoming movie, and dig the background. And I think you're going to find this is not what you're looking for. Now I have to do some more research on these people, but I got a very busy schedule. So, you people do some research. Don't just say, "Oh, this guy's doing this. Oh, isn't this great?" Well, what are you basing that on? Okay, you guys have been hoodwinked so many times on the internet, it's nuts. Like, stop it. Dig in, read some stuff. Now, Doug Forrest was talking about Queen Victoria being the last actual sovereign or the last actual monarch. So, I went and took a look at Queen Victoria last night, and it's really funny, actually. Well, it's not funny. The entire royal family it's the British royal family, but they're all German. Duh. They all marrying, like Queen Elizabeth and her husband, Prince Philip, are cousins. They're all cousins. You're not supposed to be marrying your cousins and that, but these people do. But I was absolutely astounded at how many freaking times, I don't have it up in front of me right now, but you go, just for the sheer hellry of it, a lot of people don't like Wikipedia. I actually like it because you can get a really quick overview. But again, you're not supposed to believe anything you read, see, or hear until you personally verify it. But there's a lot of Wikipedia is really good for putting a lot of links in. Okay, so it's pretty quick surface research, if you will, and then you can delve into it deeper after that if you see something that perks your interest. But I was absolutely astounded at how many times Queen Victoria was shot at. She was shot at a lot. The only time she really got injured when somebody whacked her on the head with a cane or something and squished her bonnet and put a bruise on her head. But there's a story that they were going somewhere in their wagon or whatever, and somebody jumped out of the bushes and took a shot and missed and run away. And so the ticket was, well, okay, we should go and see if we can catch this guy. So they talked Queen Victoria into doing the same route again. And this time they would have more people around and see if this guy would come out and try it again, which he did, which they caught him. And but I thought way back then when, we were shooting at the Queen or whatever, they would just, take you down, hang you in the town square. But none of these people ever got hung. Some went to the psych ward, and some got minor sentences. Some didn't get any sentence. But it was quite interesting, that there was this many pot shots took at the Queen. Some didn't have their guns loaded right. Some didn't. And they were waving their guns around. But the fact is that a lot has changed today. So I see now that several people now, I believe it is, maybe two, maybe more than that, who have taken a pot shot at the Prime Minister, a verbal pot shot at the Prime Minister through Facebook or somewhere else, have been arrested and are pending jail time in that for a verbal shot. And I find that rather annoying. Here you got this old Queen lady, can you imagine the hoo-ha if somebody walked up and hit Trudeau on the head with a cane now? Like did Queen Victoria way back when and crushed her bonnet and bruised her head up? Can you imagine the hoo-ha that would be going on in this country if somebody beamed Tinkerbell on the head with a cane? Old Queen Victoria, but I don't think she was a feminist like our Prime Minister is. I think she was more of a man than Tinkerbell is. Brush this stuff off and get on with things. Now, I'm offended. I'm so offended. You should lose your job because I'm offended. Oh my God, you're offended? Who offended you? He did. Well, take him out and quarter, and once you've quartered him, hang him, torture him, put him on the rack. I guess the old queen there, she manned up, where all the men today they're manning down. Like to wear pretty socks and stuff now. Bloody ridiculous. Anyways, I want to talk to Chris and anybody else that wants to get in on a conversation today. Why are you get this, eh? Somebody's coming to look at a car I got here, and the battery was down from the winter, and I put the battery in a box, and I put the charger on it here beside me. And cats are pretty strange. They like boxes, so the battery's in a box, so the cat's got to get in the box and stand on the battery. I was kind of waiting for him to spread his legs out there and catch both terminals to see what happened, but he seems fine. Just an offshoot there. Anyways, there's another story here that kind of irritated the hell out of me. There's a bunch of stories that irritate me. My brother-in-law was telling me this morning that he heard a story down around Kitchener, New Hamburg, somewhere down in there. A guy has been smoking sausages, or making smoked sausages, and selling them for, I guess, quite a long period of time. He had his own smokehouse and that, and it was a wood-fired smokehouse. And apparently, he's late 60s, early 70s, been doing this forever. And apparently, wood smoke is a carcinogen. And so he's not allowed to do that anymore, and he has to switch everything over to propane and that, of which he doesn't have the money, nor the time, nor the effort, nor the want to do. And so once again, as Kissinger said, control the food, control the people. And Bruce said, this old guy kind of reminds me of somebody else. And I go, yeah, the milkman? He goes, exactly. Like, how can they tell you how you can cook your food and how you can't cook your food? Or what kind of milk you can drink? Well, they can't really, but we don't stand up. And people don't rally around when somebody tries to stand up. We just kind of go in the back. Canadians are great for this, when somebody's fighting, they'll say, we're behind you 100%. But we're not going to stand beside you. And if you win, we're with you the whole time. And if you lose, well, we know you couldn't win anyways. It's really quite pathetic. It's very difficult to accept that these are my people. It's very difficult. Even when I told Bruce, he's in the construction, he's a bricklayer, stonemason, and I said, I don't get this. I always thought the construction guys were the one tough group of guys left in this country. And he goes, well, we were. I know we were. What happened? It's generational incrementalism. Now it doesn't matter what they say you got to do, you'll do it. You got to have this permit, that permit, this permit, that permit. You got to pay us money for these permits, or you can't work. And they just all bow down. Oh, caught you smoking in your truck or your trailer. That'll be a $250 fine. Can't do that. Yeah, I know you'd like to go have a nice smoked sausage, but he can't do that. I know you'd like to go have a glass of real milk, but you can't do that because he can't do that. at some point, you got to say no. Now, I'm sure I'm going back in the construction business this year, and I'm sure I'm going to be crawling up a ladder somewhere, and some idiot stick's going to come along to me and ask me for my permit to crawl up a ladder, and then I got to get down off the ladder and waste some time explaining to this pencil neck airhead bureaucrat doesn't know jack shit about anything. Then I could explain it to him, just like I explained when we got the safety inspectors in, and I had to explain to the little dipshit that I alone am in charge of my safety. Period. If I want to wear sneakers on a job site, my problem, my decision. Okay? And if I get my foot hurt, my problem. But you have no authority whatsoever to put yourself in charge of my safety. None. And once I had a conversation with the safety guy, I never seen another safety guy. He'll go find somebody else he can bother, that is easily bothered. Ontario banning door-to-door sales of some goods as of March 1st. And I hear music, so that means it's smoke time for me. I'll be back in about 4 minutes or so, and then I'm going to bring Chris in because I really want to discuss this movie that's coming up with him. So hang with us. We'll be back. This is Rock the Boat here on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, also being broadcast over to UCY.tv. Back in about 4 minutes. Yeah, like, what is wrong with you? He was standing up on the battery, and I'm thinking, if you take your 2 feet and put one on one and one on the other, well, you might have spiky hair.
I'll just take care of you.
Oh, I'll take the chair. In the sun, no less. Oh, I'm going to have a smoke. What? What are we smoking out?
Doesn't matter.
Message at Jay or Jim, but I left a message in. I'm not sure it's the right phone number. You go, what fucking Volkswagen? What do you mean he can't find his charger? What the hell's going on? 90s and shit. Are you going to be able to go to the store?
Hello, this is Maggie Rose McGrath of the Concord Show.
And co-host Marine Corps Map, coming to you on Monday and Tuesdays in Studio A, noon to 2 Eastern.
And Studio B on Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, with instructional information and situational updates, often with wonderful guests on the current landscape in the U.S. and overseas.
This is a go.
With you, side to side and back to back.
Please join us on Monday through Wednesdays.
As well as other hosts and guests here on Revolution Radio. Radio.
We're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore. We said we're not gonna take it anymore. That's right, we're not gonna take it anymore.
Friend on that radio. It's programmed. We'll call in.
Oh. What kitty cat? What kitty cat? Hey. Kitty cat. Please. So you electrocute yourself? I don't know. But, all works out pretty good.
Probably time.
Now? Right now? I don't know either. This thing's all screwed up. Because I don't hear any music. There we go. Welcome back to the show. Your host, Ron Stevens, at Rock the Boat Radio on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. So, just before we get Chris in here, I would like to just put a shout out for Revolution Radio. That it is listener supported. We don't have any these small networks here. We don't have any George Soros money. We don't have any Bill Gates money. We don't have any Rockefeller money or any of these thousands of other tax-exempt foundations that are spending their money working to take our nations down. So it's very important that these networks stay on the air. It's very important that they're funded. They're running on shoestrings. Everybody's running on a shoestring, seems to me. It's trying to save our countries. The government's reaching deep in your pocket every day. Even though it's Sunday, they're still in your pocket. So, give that hand that shouldn't be in your pocket a slap and put your own hand in the pocket and reach in there and grab 5, 10, 15, 25 bucks, whatever, and donate it, because it's vitally important that we keep these networks on the air. Anyways, I'm going to bring Chris in here, if I got him, if he's still here, and we'll see what's cooking, because I do want to talk about this movie thing, which is getting me more irritated every time I see it. And I haven't had a lot of time. I did go looking for Doug Force, and I can't dig nothing up on the guy. We got you, Christopher?
You have me, my friend. I just got one thing done.
All right. Right.
That was interesting listening to you about your cat and your wife going to the grocery store. You were live the whole time, buddy.
Was I?
You were.
Well, there you go. Yeah, silly cat, man. I'm telling you, I'm doing a show and he's standing between the two terminals on the battery. I'm thinking, okay, let's see what happens here.
Yeah.
I got the charger
like
on it.
A Bugs Bunny skit.
Well, yeah, kinda. He would have had some pretty spiked out hair, I think. Anyways, you sent me that video of that. I think it's called Canada the Myth. I think that's what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah. Every time I see one of them, the talks about this movie, I get more and more questions about it all the time.
That's why I sent it to you.
Oh, just a second. I got a call coming in here. Might be the guy for the car. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate it. I didn't feel like sitting through an hour of it, but
no.
Who's the guy with the weird hat? I've seen him before.
I know. There's a beanie, and he's very corny.
I know. And,
I don't know. And then you got that drunk woman that comes in halfway through and doesn't really say much other than, well, not much.
Yeah, I gotta look into that.
Trying. I mean, I give the guest credit in one sense. He was trying to explain his position.
Well, I don't know that that's his position,
all
though.
Around him, and I mean, and I don't agree with his position either. But, however, freedom of speech,
Well, no, I'm all for that, but there's something going on there. The young guys that made that movie, "Oh Canada, Our Bought and Sold Out Land," those boys were completely on the up and up. And if you haven't watched it, I don't care if you live in the States or Britain or where you live, it's the same basic nonsense. Oh, just a second here. Hello? Huh? You want me to bring you in? Okay. Oh, something I said got Helen excited. So we got to bring her in here as well. So I can basically, maybe I'll get you and Helen, and I'll go put the battery back in the car.
Or get the cat.
Huh? Yeah. Anyways, no, I went looking for this Doug Force guy. I can't get nothing on him, and I was watching him talk in that video, and I'm thinking, I don't know about this, because while a lot of what he says is correct, some of what he says is dead wrong.
So that's the poison.
That's the poison, yeah, and so the average listener is not going to catch that because they don't know that much, and they'll just go along with this, and that's what's got me nervous about this whole movie that's supposed to be going to come out sometime in the summer, or by the end of the summer.
Well, they're starting production now.
Yeah, so.
But when you go to, like, I even went to the donate site just for the fun of it, just to see where I could get, and I got a blank page.
Oh, why does the phone keep ringing? Just a second. Hello? No, I'm doing a show, right? Yeah, I'm going to bring you in right here immediately, dear. Oh, really? Oh, you tried to call in on Revolution's number? Oh, really? Okay, well, I'll bring you in. Give me a couple minutes. Okay, dear. Okay, bye-bye. Yeah, she was trying to come in or something. We got disconnected a couple of times or something, so she's not happy with the system either. But Yeah, like Kingston, you're right. You're almost right. When I keep seeing things down in Kingston that I'm thinking, wow, you know. And every time I hear something new that's definitely United nonsense running around in Kingston, you know, every time I see one of these stories, like the golf courses being gotten rid of and stuff, and the army personnel moving out of their living quarters to let the Muslims in and stuff.
Yeah.
Every single time I hear one of these stories from Kingston in particular, I always think of Old Fort Henry. Because we went there a couple times when I was a kid, you know, and this was set on the St. Lawrence River to protect us.
On high ground.
Yeah, from invasion. And I just find it very ironic that all of this stuff is going on in Kingston with Old Fort Henry or Fort Henry standing there at the river to protect us from invaders. And we just opened up the windows, the side doors, the back doors, and said, "Come on in." I find it very difficult in a way.
But you know, as a side note there, Ron, or Old Fort Henry was built to protect us from the Americans.
Right.
And the only thing that they protected themselves against was a few Indians that tried to overrun the fort. That's our history.
The one thing I found interesting about Old Fort Henry.
Knew better.
Well, when I was a kid, we went there, and one thing that really struck me, and I asked the tour guide, and that we're wandering around in there. I'm thinking, like, were these people really this short? Because the beds were really, really short.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, yeah. And so I'm thinking, okay, so you got all these little short people that apparently have a very strong spirit, mind, and spine living in this rock containment center, willing to stand ground at all times. And today we got a whole lot of taller people, and they're bowing down to the point where they're probably shorter than the short people were that were in the fort at the time. It's really getting rather irritating. Now, I don't know what's on Helen's mind here, but something's going on, so I'm going to drag her in and see what's cooking. I would love to go back to Calgary. I really, truly would, because I don't think I would recognize it for a minute.
Hello?
Hello, Helen?
Yes.
Yeah, this is the Ontario government.
Yeah.
And we've contacted the RCMP in Calgary and asked if they would maybe come and have a chat with you.
Yeah. They can stay out the door at the no trespassing sign.
Ah. So I'll have to phone the Ontario government and tell the RCMP to bring blowhorns, because they're not invited on. I have to speak from the road, right?
That's right. This is
How
my
you
private
doing?
property.
How you doing, dear?
Good.
So, anyways, I saw today in the paper that Calgary finally has a soul.
Based on what?
On Black History Month. That, apparently, Calgary didn't have any soul prior to.
Well, we haven't had
a bunch
much
of dumb
of a soul.
white people running around.
We haven't had much of a soul for quite a while, as far as I'm concerned, because people are not standing up to the truth and doing the right thing.
I know.
Since our Muslim mayor has come in, I spoke to somebody this weekend who I knew I have a keen intuition, and I knew I should speak to her. I finally did speak to her as I was leaving this store that I was at, and she said there's no place for white-haired people living here in Calgary. She said, I worked in the city of Calgary, and she said it's under Ninchi, and she said it is just awful, and that what she had to go through. And well, I'm sure it's just not Ninchi, but I do know that he is hiring all the time Muslims, and they'll also do a lot of Sikhs for cleaning up the Calgary, City Hall. But as far as getting anybody qualified down there, I think there's very few and far between.
Well, the same thing's going on in Toronto. Okay, I mean, they've set up a system there where they're going to hire a whole bunch of Muslim intern people to work in the offices and that, to basically groom them to replace who's ever in the offices now. And, it's not about being able to do anything for you, right? Now what's going to happen is people are going to go to the city hall or go to one of the agencies or something, and they're going to be talking to what it looks to them as foreigners, and they will be below the authority that's sitting behind the desk. And even if these people are 100% incompetent, which I would think is part of the plan, there's signs going up all over the place that you have to act a certain way, and if you offend me, I can ask you to leave, and if you don't leave, the cops will drag your ass out of here. That stuff's popping up all over the place now.
In the court system, the same thing. They'll be having they have signs there, don't offend us, or don't, no abuse or whatever. And guess what? It's projection. They're the very people that are abusing you, deceiving you, and giving you wrong information and omissions.
Right. So, but you can't have a discussion with them because they'll be offended.
Yes, or get to the truth.
Right.
Of anything.
And then they'll haul your ass out of there or give you a ticket. It's getting bad. And, people, if you look at how fast they've moved in the last 3 years, it's really getting out of hand, Like they did this so slow for so long.
Yeah.
I had a young lady here, I guess she's going to rent the other house, has a 2-year-old child and the 2-year-old boy, and her boyfriend was with her, and we were talking about the school, and she said, to her boyfriend, we can't play Red Rover anymore. He goes, why not? That was fun. Yeah, but then you have to, it's too brutal. And then when we talked about this stuff, and he was just absolutely freaked out, right? He had no clue what was going on in the school system, right? He's probably 30 years old or something, late 20s, early 30s. And he said, school wasn't like that when I went to school.
I have a sign on my computer that says the worst thing we ever, it says perhaps, but it's not perhaps. It's the worst thing I ever did is put my children into government schools.
Yeah, so it's but so many people don't know. Like I had somebody come look at a car here at for sale yesterday afternoon, and they're probably 40-ish, and we were talking about some stuff and that, and the wife seemed to have a better idea what was going on than the husband, and he was freaked out, right? Yep. He had no clue what was going on in these schools, right? And that's the problem. And I got talking about the memory bank thing, right? I mean, those kids in those schools have no memory bank whatsoever, and the schools have basically isolated them from the parents, and they can put whatever junk they want in those kids' heads, and the kids don't have anything to bounce it off of. Was it right or it's wrong? No, there's no direction there anymore. And,
I was at Costco this week, and a guy says, "Oh, I like age before beauty." I said, "Okay, I'll take it. You only have a few things," so I went ahead of him. Anyway, we were talking, and he did work for the Calgary Board of Education at one time, and his comment was, "Our teachers have too much power, but it's really the principals and the administration." And I said, "Yes, you're right." And so I gave him my card and said, "Check this out." But another thing is about realtors and not getting your signature for. You said a brokerage person wasn't going to sign, and he sort of was, behind the door and didn't want to sign for sign
he
his name.
slinkered out of there.
Mm-hmm. Well, they're not allowed to do that anymore. They apparently, under brokerage, I didn't know that until about 4 or 5 years ago. I spoke to a brokerage, and they're not allowed, like lawyers, to talk about anything about politics. And I have seen, personally, I experienced, because I did sell real estate I couldn't stand it, but there's a connection between the banks, the brokerage, the real estate, the lawyers.
Oh yeah,
and skimming off money, et cetera, et cetera. So
well, I mean, this
is
the problem. I mean, I have the head of the real estate association here, who all the brokers and all the real estate are licensed under. I have her recorded saying that it's a fraud, right? And it is a fraud. And so the banks are in the fraud, the realtors are in the fraud, the lawyers are in the fraud.
Yeah, they're skimming money off too.
Yeah, everybody's skimming off of us. We didn't buy anything. All we bought was an investment certificate, right? We don't own anything. The house does not represent anything. Okay, it's like I don't know. It's just a trading stock. You know, when I first a few years ago, when I started to hear them always saying, your property is the biggest investment that most Canadians ever make, and I started, what do you mean investment? I thought we bought a house. We bought an investment, right? But we don't own the house. We don't own the land the house is sitting on.
Just like if you put any money in the stock exchange.
That's all it is. That's all it is. And if you right, and if you sell when the market's rising, you'll make some money. But if the market's going down, you're going to lose some money. I mean, lots.
Well, I would say 99% of the time I'm going to lose, because in 1947 I did some research on this. Because I had been stung severely, and I showed this document to, it was by mistake released from IBM, and then found in a computer, and then somebody somehow retrieved it, and it was started in 1947 by Rockefeller and the Bilderbergs. And they had to devise the computers well enough to develop an algorithm that the stock or social culturing, all they had to do is press a button, and basically you would be fried on every investment that you made.
Yeah.
And I showed it to my lawyer and someone else, and he got scared because it was addressed to the Bilderberg. It was regarding the Bilderberg in 1954. And so that's how it works. So I live and learn and get hurt decisively, but at least I'm walking on the ground, and I'm investigating things.
Well, this
Another
is what
thing about Doug Forrest. And now, Doug Forrest, I and him, but we spoke to one another, and he's a minister, and it seems as if he was supposed to have been giving me some advice, but upon reflection with my own personal things, I thought to myself, there's something strange there too.
You feel that too?
Because
there's something not right there.
Because it's something to do with law, or with legalese.
Yeah, exactly. He's not getting to the point at all. I mean, you know, he's not getting to the core problem here at all. It's like a runaround, and there's something.
It's a distraction, and has to do with probably. I mean, it sounds good, but perhaps it's divide and just another divide and conquer.
Well, that's like I was saying. I read some documents a long time ago, either out of Rockefeller, UN, or some damn place, that one of the things that they wanted to do was break the countries up into chunks, so that the country's fighting inside against itself.
Just like Quebec.
Exactly. And
I lived through that.
You know, we have the Alberta Separation Group and the BC Separation Group and all of this kind of stuff. So, where did you meet Doug Force?
On the phone.
Oh, did you really?
Yep.
Where'd you get his phone? Send me his phone number. I want to call him.
I'll try and find it amongst, you know, I have a lot of papers around me.
I didn't find a phone number. I found an email address, but I didn't find a phone number anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I have a phone number.
Fantastic. I want to give him a call and get him on the show.
Okay. That would be a good idea. Another thing is, you're talking about divide and conquer between families and, religions and separation and, colors and that. Well, you're black and I'm white. As long as you're a good person, it doesn't matter, and you do the right thing. I don't care what color you are. But I know that our mainstream media, and I believe, I didn't hear this, but I heard from a reliable source that America is apparently wanting Ontario and Alberta. But that's another divide and conquer tactic.
Well, that was part of the documents I read quite a while ago. You see, because this is all part of the North American Union, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if they can't pull us all at once, they'll pull us in pieces, right? And it's all about the death of the nation state. This is quite worrisome. I every time I see one of these separation parties, I want to go smack somebody. We have here. Regardless if you want to say, Prince Edward and Nunavik are provinces, but Ontario and Alberta aren't, or however the hell you want to spin this thing. The fact of the matter is that this chunk of ground we call Canada, we built it, okay? And a divided nation ain't going to stand long, and that's what they're trying to do. So we need to stand together, not oppose each other.
And what is the difference between a territory? Because they seem to, a territory seems to be separate than the state or the province.
Yeah, but the point is, like when he said that, they bought out the charter of the Hudson's Bay Company. The fact of the matter is that the Hudson's Bay Company was a chartered company, and Canada is a chartered company. So, whether you are in Nunavik or BC or Prince Edward, it doesn't make any damn difference. Okay, this is a company.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Faye sent me a song and I didn't get a chance to listen to it. It was the old Tennessee Ernie Ford song about another day older, another deeper in debt. Working for the company's store kind of thing.
Yeah, I like that.
That is this country. That is this country. It's always been this country. And we got to come to terms with it, right?
Well, you talked about that last week, and I haven't. Sometimes I'm busy doing something else, and I'm not sitting here right at the computer writing some notes down and making connections, and so I have to always go back. And I know that last week's show, I think I put it on my Facebook. I said listen to that one because it had to deal with the company store and Tennessee Ernie Ford, or said that you only are a piece of paper and you're working for the company store, no different than a plantation. And
it's no different than a plantation because, it's actually worse than a plantation because, everybody's out there busting their ass trying to make a living, keep their heads above ground so they keep a roof over their head. At least on the plantation, you had a roof over your head and food on your table every day.
And you probably didn't have to pay the taxes.
You didn't see a lot of plantation workers living in tents on the side of a road.
Right.
But what they do, I mean, this plantation that we're on here, they pay us for labor, but then they pay us with the one hand, and the other hand's in her pocket, taking out what they just gave us. And then when you're done, you get buried in the company graveyard, and it's really quite sickening.
And then you turn around, it turns around, and then they want another, after you paid about 50, 60 or more % tax, and then you have a death tax, and you wonder how they even, how did they come up with this number? And they have no, because they're the officials, they don't have to almost give you any information of how they came up with anything.
No. I mean, when CRA was giving me a hard time, I said, where the hell do you come up with these numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we just make them up. Well, that's what they said. We guesstimate them.
Yeah.
What do you mean guesstimate?
Mm-hmm.
So you based it on nothing. Well, sorta.
Yeah. Well, I just finished.
And now you want to chase my ass around for something that ain't real. Well, yeah. We got that sorted out pretty quick, but people, they will hound the hell out of people, and the CRA isn't even part of Canada.
That's right. It's foreign interest.
Yeah.
I know. I just finished a letter to them this week on that. I worked for about 4 months on that. Another thing is this global warming and our food. And, I was very lucky. The last little while I've been getting my eggs from a farmer, and I was extremely pleased. So I went last week to get 3 more dozen and find out that the winter was so cold that his hens, 70 hens died, and so he had 100. And he was a pretty frugal, farmer. I mean, I would think that we should put maybe a little bit of a heating system in his where he keeps his chicken hens during the winter. Anyway, he's giving that up, which is disappointing for me. And and only if he has extra will he call me and say I can go and pick up some eggs.
Yeah, it's getting more and more difficult to get food.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. And
though Chris likes going to the grocery store in Kingston.
Yes, I know, Chris.
It's so multiculturalism, and there's so few people speaking English in his grocery store now. He can't wait to go there each week.
I'm so lucky when I go to this farmer. He knew about the pigs in England, where they started to do some issues there in the 60s with them. An issue. Government started to experiment and then to cause some issues in regard to health and the slaughtering of all the pigs. Remember that?
I know I missed that one, but I know the pigs are under the gun all over the place now. Mm-hmm. Trying to anybody that's trying to grow anything, that isn't full of toxins is on the government hit list. I mean, they're doing everything in their power to make sure no food you eat is really edible, right? They just want you sick.
Yeah. Well, drink lots of soda and pop, and you'll get cancer.
Yeah, I'm absolutely amazed at, me and my brother-in-law were talking about that this morning, that we've quit eating packaged food and that, and how much healthier we feel,
Amazing, how brainwashed our children are, because I'm a more, older woman in my 60s, and I find that my children didn't appreciate, and nor really did my husband really appreciate, that I made everything from scratch, that I went and picked berries, wild berries, that I did some of these things that I was brought up as a young child to believe.
Well, see, we used to do that, when I was a kid, we would be told, go find some wild raspberries or strawberries or whatever, and bring them home, and then Mom would cook something up. And then, but at the time I was, once we got out of the 50s, I noticed that all of a sudden all this packaged stuff started showing up, and we really didn't want, because the TV's pushing all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden we just wanted whatever was on the TV set, you know.
I didn't get a TV until I was 9. So by then I had other interests. I developed other interests.
Well, this is it. Like, I didn't watch, I wasn't in the house very much, but what I noticed was that, whatever they stuck on the TV, we wanted to eat, and then when I was a kid, weren't drinking pop or any of this stuff, and then all of a sudden that's all we were drinking. It's just what they did to us. And I'm sure it was difficult for the parents too, because if your friend is eating all this junk and drinking all this pop, and there's that friction that's built up. Why can't I have it, right? Kind of attitude, right? Well, instead of saying, well, they're poisoning themselves, you want to poison yourself? Instead, if they, I mean, my parents would have done that, that would have been a big score, right? Look at your grandma and your grandpa, how strong and healthy they are at their age. Do you want to be strong and healthy, or do you want to be weak and feeble? Because if you want to be weak and feeble, then go do what that other kid's doing.
But oftentimes, like the difference between my grandmother and my mother is like I skipped a generation and became more like her, my grandmother, because I respected her, loved her, honored her. She was of reverence to me, and I had developed a faith in the universe, a faith in me, a faith in nature, and a respect for nature.
Yeah, I've always respected nature. I mean, I look back more at my grandparents, how simple their lives were, and how healthy they were, compared to what I'm seeing today. And I just think that's a better place to be. I mean, if we can't even grow our own food, then what are we? I mean, if we can't feed ourselves good, healthy food, then what the hell are we? We're certainly not much of a nation.
Or when we can't say no. Finally, as a woman, I finally said no, but it did take me a long time to say no. The one other thing that I think we have to learn to say no. We have to learn to say what is on our minds without this being politically correct, of which I am not politically correct at all, and I'm proud of it. And another thing is we have to listen to our intuition. If we go by something, say something, and you say to yourself, there's something there, most likely there is something there. And so by tuning into this, you find out what your heart, soul, what the core of your essence is wanting to tell you. And so all I can say is to the listeners, listen to your intuition. Stop doing all the time. Become and be in the process. Meditate, write journals. Just sit and reflect and look at the sky, or think about yourself. And those would be some of the things, because what the government likes us to do is constantly do. And being in the being process and developing one's intuition, you develop a confidence within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I just call it the gut feeling. I mean, if you listen to your gut, it very seldom will steer you wrong.
The gut is the highest form of knowing, and it's higher than either your left brain or your right brain.
I believe so, because it's your natural instinct. Your gut tells you when to, to fight and when to flee, and what's right and what's wrong, and it's the mind that gets in the way more times than not. Your gut will tell you something, and then your mind will start messing with it. And
now the mind, what happens in our school system is our mind, they use convergent thinking styles through the technology, through science, through, psychology. They'll use convergent, which is judgmental, which is going against other people rather than understanding the reason, when with divergent thinking, one thinks in a much more holistic, and bringing in people, getting all the facts, forming relationships, understanding who you are, because that's how you understand people, through relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, so as far as sending your children to government schools, if you want them to be judgmental, be not knowing, very three-dimensional, being in a small box, then go ahead, send them there. But they will never, ever, very seldom ever get out of the box, and it takes a hell of a long time and hard work, which I have done. And I appreciate the hard work that I did as a young child, because I don't think I would have given up. It's much easier to take a friggin' pill, maybe, and then being in zombie land, at least you think it is, but it's not. And I mean, I was listening to somebody yesterday. They're putting children 1 year old on psychotropic drugs.
Yeah. Yeah,
and I got my hair cut this week, and this girl wants to be a doctor. I said, well, what would you ever want to be a doctor for? And I got talking to her about it.
I saw a story about, here it is. Everything is a mental problem now. Okay, this is the new deal, because they want you on drugs. Childhood cancer survivors found to be at higher risk of mental illness. Now, where the hell would you come up with something like that? Right? Well, we need a reason to give everybody drugs, right? The
best thing one would ever do is find the best naturopath in your town, your city, and go to it. Forget about the amount of money you pay to the socialized medicine, because if you're walking down that path, it's the wrong path, in my opinion.
Well,
the only reason I would go if I had a broken arm.
My mom, that's normally when I go to the hospital for something needs to be stitched up or whatever, or straightened out. But, my mom was in the hospital last week for a few days, and she's got leukemia, but they said, well, it's manageable. But she her blood pressure was bouncing and stuff, and she did
something to do with her blood.
Well, she has leukemia, which is a blood disease, but she was suffering from what she called acid reflux, right? And I said, that whole acid reflux is a crock of nonsense, okay? What you're suffering from is something in the food you've been eating, okay? A chemical problem. And, she said, she had so much pain up around her heart. And I used to get these attacks until I stopped eating packaged food. Right.
But the one thing that the packaged foods and canned foods do is they don't keep the gut flora and the enzymes in the gut. So you have to quite often you have to go to probiotics and enzymes.
Well, that's the other problem, right? And that's what a lot of the people that were drinking raw milk found. Like Michael, people that were getting older who were getting osteoporosis and that, once they got on the raw milk, they would go back to their doctors, and the doctors were astounded at the regaining of the bone density, right? In other words, this is healthy, and it's the same thing with the Well, if you take antibiotics or a lot of these pills, but in particular antibiotics, you kill your good gut bacteria.
Yeah.
And, raw milk straightens that out instantly.
Yeah.
And so, they don't want you to be healthy. That's the whole point, people. They do not want you to be healthy. Healthy people think better. Healthy people are more likely to stand up and say no. If they've got you on all these drugs, which all have effects on you, you're not likely to be able, you're not capable of being who you're really supposed to be. They take that essence away from you, and you got to get it back. And that means you got to.
And it's hard to do. It's almost impossible within the education system. With now that within like 6-8 months they have you within the kindergarten system. So, my child, the first time I ever caught him lying was because of the school system. He learned at a young age because he modeled what the other students were doing and how they played the game. So that's where I caught him. So I could tell you that I'd think twice before I'd ever send my children to any government school. And I'd only have a master teacher who would understands the mind, been through it, understands history and what things were like, maybe 100 years ago. And then go back from there. Then the student, through reflection and through journalizing, then they can go back through generations of issues that they might have to face.
Well, I mean, I look at our public school system the very same way I look at the native schools, the government school system that destroyed the native people.
But has the native people learned? Because I have a native person who looks after something that a store that I go to, and he hasn't learned from his parents. He doesn't. No,
but this is the thing. Either. This is the thing. Once they have destroyed the societal norms, which was the whole point of the government native school system, was to take the children away from the families, to take away their history, to take away their societal norms, and they became a lost people, right? And now the native people going to the government, looking for the government to help them, it just really breaks my heart, because you're going to your abuser asking for assistance. I mean, come on. And this is the same. Well, this is the same place they're getting the average man or woman into now. Is they be abused, and then they run to the abuser for help. So they're doing the same thing to us as what they did to the native people. And I wish people would understand that. I wish there was some way to get a good, solid connection between the native people in this country and the rest of us, because we're all in the same boat. And what happened to the native people is exactly what's taking place now, especially in the school system.
Well, I speak to this gentleman a fair amount, and I always planting seeds. And I did mention, because that week you had mentioned about, talked about the natives. And so I often say, have you listened to Ron Stevens, Rock the Boat? He talks about the natives and what had happened to you, they're doing to us today. So please listen, that's what I'll say.
But do you find that this native gentleman that you're speaking to, what I found about the native people in general, is they are so placid. They're very, very conquered. Very nice people. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love the native people, but it's like their spirits have been crushed.
Well, yeah, like they have been crushed, and like ours have been crushed.
And this is exactly what I say is happening to us. Our spirits, minds, and spines are being weakened so badly that we don't know how to say no anymore. We don't know how to stand up anymore.
Well, I will mention to him the next time I see him about you're working for an abuser.
Yeah, I would love to get some Native people on the show. I would just love to get some Native people on the show.
Well, I think I might have somebody for you then.
If you can get me a Native man or woman on the show, I would be so thankful.
Okay.
Right. I work with some Native people up in northern Alberta, and the one guy I worked with was a heavy equipment operator, and he was very intelligent. His wife was a teacher. He did not fit the standard slot of what people think natives are, right? Very good people.
They are.
But once you're beaten down, and this is what I find with the kids today, right? They have no. What I see with too many of the Native people is been beat down so long, they end up in drugs and alcohol and all that kind of stuff. And when you look at the drug and alcohol problem we have here now, it's the same game, And now we have the government wanting to, like you said, your child was born, here, have a pill. We want to get these kids on these, pills as soon as we can, and then they can eat them for free till they're 25, and then we've made them completely brain dead. Right.
Well, they've destroyed my family, and
they've destroyed.
That's why I have such passion to educate people, and I decided that I'm going to take a bit of a break because I want to do some other things, and I focus on something else rather than what I have been doing the last little while, and because I just want to get. Things more centered in myself, and I wanted to do some things at the home that I need. And I met somebody I was throwing out some recycling things the other day, and I said, "Oh, do you know?" Because my intuition told me. I said, "Oh, do you know of an no, I didn't say electrician. I said, "Do you know of a handyman around that lives around that's good, that's reliable, and that knows what he's doing?" He says, "Oh," he said, "What do you need done?" And I said, "I need some electrical work." He said, "You're speaking to an electrician." And then he went and explained where he lived, and I knew exactly. So he's coming over in the next 6-8 days, and doing my electrical work. So that's the importance of following.
Now you're talking about a properly functioning neighborhood.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you're giving. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Chris. I'm glad you chimed in. Tell me more.
Well, you're talking about the kids and drugs. It's really funny because I've been around a lot of drugs in my day, but the most dangerous drugs I see right now is the government giving free prescriptions to any child under 25.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a real gift from the Ontario government, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Something free.
Let's all sing "I Love My Government." But at the same token, I do believe that people are. I really do believe people are starting to wake up. Now we just got to get a strong spine in them and get them to the point where they can stand up and say, "You know what? No." No is such a powerful word if you just use it. Well,
we're pushing a lot of the younger ones, Ron, and my children are part of it.
Well, yes, and I appreciate it, and I'm starting to see.
The point is they have a hard time speaking with their friends because their friends are too busy burying their heads in video games, or we gotta.
I know we got to go, but I'm starting to see more younger, like people in the 30s, starting to join onto my Facebook. Although I'm in Facebook all the time, so I can't really put much out there. But I'm starting to see some younger people starting to stick their heads up. That video you sent me, we're just about out of time, but that video that you sent me, that young guy that was talking about the police data, Chris.
Which one was
that long-haired guy? The guy probably in his early 30s. We're out of time,
Question
folks. Sorry about
everything.
that. We'll do this again
Intelligent
tonight.
radio for
You probably
intelligent
can't hear
people.
me, but you can. Take care, everybody.
UCY.TV.
Helen, thank you. Chris, thank you. Revolution Radio, thank you. UCY. Thank you. You're on time. We're proud of you.